Hi, everybody. My name is Rachel Blatt, and I am the CEO of Royalty Logistics. And I'm coming at you today with an episode of Car Biz Leaders Live. We took a little bit of a hiatus over the summer, just moved into a new house, which is where we're broadcasting from today. We'll give you the little mini tour once everything is put away and unpacked. But in the meantime, I got a very special guest for you today, Kiefer Bartel. He's been on my show before, but he's got so many great gems. I wanted to bring him back. He's a really great friend of mine and somebody who I respect a whole lot in this business. GM over Tom Cadlick Honda. He hosts a podcast called Sales as I Know It. And if you haven't checked it out, it is great. And if so we're going to talk about wonderful things today. And if you want to chime in or chat with us, please leave your comments. We love comments and we're ready to rock and roll. So without further ado, welcome to Car Biz Leaders Live. Thanks, guys. Thanks for watching. And let's welcome the one and only Kiefer Bartel. What's up, Kiefer?
Hey,
How are you?
wow, I feel like the intro is really impressive now. I think last time I was on the show, the intro must have been redone since.
Yes, I have been improving.
I do have to correct it. I'm not the general manager, so I do appreciate that. However, I'm the director of used cars and oversee that end of the business. So that is what I do every day. I've been in the car business. It will be for 10 years in October. So been in the car business a long time. Seen a lot of different parts of it, a lot of different departments in the business, and I'm just honored to be on the show again. We had a blast last time, and I had a good time with it, and got a lot of good feedback, and I was glad to get invited back.
Yeah, well, listen, even I think being in used cars, I think that's really the hardest part of the dealership anyway. I mean, for the most part, that is a crucial money-making center of the dealership. And, and being a good used car manager is so important. I was just talking to one of my other customers, and he's one of the owners of 7 stores. And he was saying how, a bad used car manager could really destroy a dealership because they don't know what they're doing, and how important to buy.
Like, you don't know what you don't know. And what I find with it in any industry, let alone in the auto industry, is people, they learn something and then they stop learning. They learned the business at X period of time, whether it was even 2 years ago, whether it was 6 months ago. The business that we're in today is different than it was 6 months ago, and different than it was 5 years ago, and different than it was 10 years ago when I got into the car business. And you have to keep evolving, and you have to keep learning, and it never stops, which is kind of like, we talked this morning on the phone, and then we talked about a lot of times in the car business or in any business, people get really into their job, and they get really into the industry they're in, or they and that's its own interesting thing. We were talking about this morning about how a lot of times people get kind of negative blowback for that, and I think that that's something that certainly helped me early on in my career and still today. Like I couldn't imagine if I only was able to put 40 hours in learning half the things I've learned.
Yeah. I think if you want to be successful at anything, you have to have a little bit of obsession with it. And I think when work becomes your obsession in order to become successful, people who either aren't as successful or really just aren't obsessed with their particular job, for example, like my husband's a teacher, for example, and he's a good teacher, but is he completely obsessed with his job? I mean, we would argue yes and no, not completely as obsessed as I am with my company, but there's a different level of obsession. But he also doesn't work on a commission scale like we do. You know what I mean? Or bonus structure or anything like that.
Yeah, and I think too with it, it's a few things. Like, I was talking to a buddy of mine this week, and he was saying, he's really big into like outdoor stuff, and his level of obsession with that is the same as your and mine might be with work. And it's all about finding that one thing that you're super passionate about and going all in on it, and being committed to yourself and being committed to what you want to do and accomplish it. And whether that's you want to be the best bass fisherman you can be, then be that. But for me, I always found it to be with my work, and that I knew that I wasn't always, maybe the most skilled at everything, and maybe I didn't know the answer to everything, but I knew that I was just willing to work harder than most people, and listen and have my eyes open and connecting great areas like this, that the odds were things were going to go great, and I was going to keep learning and keep growing. And I couldn't tell you that enough. I mean, I get new people that reach out to me that are new to the car business, and my advice is always super simple. It's like, just go all in on it. And if it's something that you really want to do, that's what you should be doing, versus it's not an industry to try it and see if it works. Because those are, we get a fair amount of critique that people, and you've been around the car business for a long time, are in the car business for X period of time, move on and do something else. Well, it's because they probably didn't go all in on it.
Yeah. Yeah. I think, it took me a while to get like
because you weren't in the car business before, right? I think we talked about that.
Technology. I sold technology for 10 years at CompuWare before I came in here. And believe me, like when you go from like a technology company to automotive, you're like, whoa, we need this, we need that, we need this. Like, what do you mean? And I think since I've been in the car business, the technology has evolved, but there's still so many avenues and aspects of it that have just stayed stagnant. Like one of the companies that I worked for still, had all of their files in like manila folders and boxes. And, that's just the poor trees. But, I think, we are evolving. Let's say hi to Jeremy. Kenny, thank you so much for your support. Judy, you are the bomb.com. She's a wonderful lady. This woman is amazing. And thanks, guys, for checking in. Jeremy, thank you so much for the compliment. Super appreciate that. And I'll just leave that one up because that makes everybody feel good. But everybody who's watching, thank you so much for joining us today. I got Kiefer Bartel here. We're talking car biz and fun, awesome goodies, dropping the gems today. So what do you think about, like, you talked about the changes in the last 6 months, and I've experienced my own COVID situation. What's up, Max? How do you think it's evolved? Like, what are you guys doing to stay on top of this market that's just been so crazy in the last couple of months? And how are you guys kind of succeeding through all this?
Yeah, I mean, there's certain things, there's certain things I can't talk about, but when it comes to part of it, like, I just encourage people to, if you were in business prior to this, like, there was things you did really good that got you there. I don't think because the world's changed in some aspects or we've adapted our life that we need to throw our entire business model upside down. Yeah. And I think a lot of times, like I was watching dealers and it was like, you have to bring the car to their house and you have to do all this stuff, or these other online companies are going to do it. And yes, maybe you have to do that sometimes, but you shouldn't just assume because there's a period of time in which the world is different. And maybe it stays that way. I don't know. But I couldn't imagine throwing an entire business model upside down without knowing how long it was going to be that way. Yeah. And some dealers were quick to jump on the bandwagon and say, you know what, I'm going to take something I've been really good at and I'm going to completely change my business and expect it to fix every problem. And the truth is it doesn't. I mean, it takes great people doing great work that are committed to a business and a company and an industry to make it work. I'm a big believer in there's not one fancy fix that fixes everything. And there's not a shiny object that now this is the one thing that changes my business. The principles are still there. It's processes, people, and hard work that make those things happen. And I mean, what we were talking about this morning, it's sometimes working a 15-hour day to make it work. It's not just, it's 5 o'clock, I got to go home. And I think the one thing with the pandemic, car business aside, is it taught everybody that works in either customer service or sales that I got to work harder.
Yeah.
You know, I got to work harder. I got to work different. I got to work smarter. And I think if anything, like I look at what we're going through as an industry as an opportunity versus a negative. And a lot of times people call me like an internal optimist when it comes to stuff like that. But like, I truly believe there's a bigger upside to what we're experiencing than a downside, meaning what we can learn from it versus just take it as a negative and keep thinking it's just there's no positive way out.
Yeah. I mean, I think you have to stay positive, and I think it's scary sometimes. I think it's scary when you're running a business and you don't know, like the uncertainty, right? The uncertainty it breeds fear. And so when you don't know what's going to happen, it's definitely scary. But I love that you're an internal optimist and that you're staying positive. Max Clem, what's up? He's an internal optimist himself.
Good.
But, there's a lot of times when, your mental mindset absolutely helps with staying successful too. I mean, I've always believed in the work harder. I'm just like, but then, you can burn out. And so I guess one of my questions to you.
I want to talk about that actually, that you said that, but finish your question.
Well, one of my questions to you is like, how do you avoid the burnout? Because like, there's only so much like that I am I guess moving really taught me that like there's an edge, and I, you know what I mean? Like, okay, this is where I stop, right? Like this is enough, right? Of stress and things that I've got going on. So, what do you think is, a way to kind of, stay positive, avoid burnout, keep moving forward, staying successful through, all this kind of levels of stress,
So for me, I'm a human being like anybody else. There's times where I get, I call it crispy, but like I get more crispy or I get more on edge. And, thankfully, number one, like having a great spouse to recognize that a lot of times, because sometimes I wouldn't even recognize it, or great coworkers or great people that are like, hey, look, like you should probably take the afternoon off. You need that. But, for me, really, the times I noticed where I was experiencing that is when I didn't have – my brain is, I think, super creatively, right? So when I'm not experiencing coming up with new ideas and new processes and new ways to do things, that's where I experience what most people call burnout. But truthfully, if my purpose is big enough, like what I'm trying to do and what I want to do, there is no burnout. I could work 18-hour days and it doesn't matter. That's the second I get up in the morning, I'm thinking about it till the second I go to bed. That doesn't mean I don't enjoy the time with my family. That doesn't mean that I don't enjoy those things. I always joke, it's kind of like an app running on your phone in the background. That's kind of what it is for me. And sometimes that's where some of my most creative ideas are. Like, I have the ability to keep that running kind of all the time. And then randomly I'll be like, oh, let's try it this way, or let's do it that way. But for me, like I become more disappointed when I'm not all in on something than when I'm all in on something. Because, I would say I probably had 80% of my friends over the last 5 years ask me about burnout and, when I'm going to get burned out and all those things. And the truth of it is, like when I'm doing great work and I'm really excited about it and I'm working with great people and, great leadership in an organization, there is no burnout for me. Like there is no, I don't lose that focus. It's just, for me, that's something that, sometimes like I used to always look at it as an ability until I was talking to one of my friends recently. It's like, maybe that's not an ability, but it's important to surround yourself with people that get it. But, for a period of my life and really over the last 5 years is where I've noticed it. You got to remember the people that are working really, really hard as well. They don't look at it that way. They will never tell you you're working too hard. It's usually always, whether it's friends or whatever that, and sometimes even families a lot of times can be really hard on this too. They can say, hey, why are you working so hard? Why are you working so much? and it's just they don't align on the same level with it, and that's okay. And part of it was for me coming to terms with it, assuming and being okay with not everybody's going to be that way.
Right.
And I don't know if you've ever ran into that where it's, hey, why are you working so much? Why are you staying an hour late? Why are you thinking about work right now?
All the time.
And it kind of
get off your phone. Get off your phone. You've been on your phone all day. Well, I mean, I'm making money. Like, my phone is very important. Sorry, but I think there has to be like a mini balance. But at the same time, like this, like, Chad Cunningham always uses the car for sleep, and for most of us who are successful in this business, we're really obsessed. We're obsessed. I mean, I'm up till 2:00 in the morning looking at stuff and, thinking about it and, going through, like, planning it out and making sure the process is right and trying to get better every single day. But I think, I think your family they're like afraid that you're going to burn out.
Sure.
But, you have that passion, that driven. What's up, Lou? What's up, Mo? Thank you for joining. We appreciate it. He says, to avoid burnout, you truly need to be doing what fuels you. Needing to recharge is different from burnout. And I
believe that as well. Like, don't get me wrong, I still take time. You probably saw my new puppy. So, like, I mean, there's still times where I'm doing things that aren't just work-based.
Yeah.
But the deal is, like, my life runs in like a line, right? And I never want to deviate too much. I can tell when I'm getting too far away from not spending time with my son and my wife and my puppy, right? And then I can also tell when I'm not spending not enough time on my work. And it's about maintaining that balance, and it's a super slippery slope. And there's nobody that's going to tell you a perfect way to do it because they probably don't know the answer themselves. And, I could never take the answer, well, just, hey, when it's 40 hours, man, just be done with it and put it away and take it up next week. That's just not how my brain works. And maybe there's something wrong with me. I don't know. But from what I found with it is when I started talking to other people that wanted the same things out of life that I do, we oddly enough had very similar traits, and we're going through the same type of things, same conversations. And really, like, because as you go through that, you kind of start to change your circle of friends and the people that you give your time to. And you start realizing that the people you want to spend time with also think very similar to you as well.
I agree with that so much. And that's why I feel like when you surround yourself with positive people all the time and everybody's being positive, it's easier for you to continue to operate at that high level, right?
Yeah, very much so.
Quickly, they're moving at a pace that you really need to go at in order for you to be successful. And I think when, and I've experienced like sort of like the cycle of like emotions, right? Like, cause I can be a negative Nancy. I can get scared. That's really what it comes down to is like my fear. Like I'm too high on the roller coaster. Like, oh my God.
But do you think that's like built in like thought process? Like, I think of a lot of times I grew up in a pretty humble beginnings and I grew up in a pretty humble like family. And it was always like, hey, don't think too big. Like, be content with what's going on. Like it's your time. You'll get there. Like that type of thought process, I think sometimes breeds fears more than not having those, and I think sometimes, and I'm going through this as a parent right now, right? Like my son's 2.5 years old, and like we think about these things where all of those like small details that we might have said to our children years later might impact them more than we could ever think, right? And sometimes we tell our kids like, hey, save your money and like spend responsibly and all these things, but I think sometimes it becomes magnified as we get older in life, and it starts dictating how we view our business and how we view operating things. And just, I didn't mean to cut you off, but I just think it's an interesting, because I was thinking about it recently myself.
Yeah, no, I think our family plays a lot into like our, like, so there's a saying out there, and I just had it on my Facebook the other day that like, when you realize that you are the one that's holding you back, it's not necessarily, it's about the beliefs that you have now. Like, who installed those beliefs are my mom and dad. Now, are they to blame for it? No, because I have the ability to change those beliefs, right? But at the end of the day, like, I still have to, like, if I become successful, if I talk about money is like a big, like, oh, you're obsessed, or you're greedy. I like talking about it. I'm very interested in finance. I like talking about stocks and bonds and finance and savings and making money and all these things. And then I will get like negative feedback from my family, like, well, you're being greedy, or, and then I feel like I need to overcompensate and be extra overly generous in some areas of my life, because I don't want that belief to be true, and maybe they're just being short and they're not really thinking about the what that means to me, right? So they're just, being my parents, and they want me to be conservative and
Sure.
want me to be careful, and I'm running a business and they want everything to be perfect, and it's just like, well, let's just let my accountant handle some things and let's just move forward, because I don't feel like that. But it's a tough that installation that they have given me has definitely sat with me and made it hard for me to bust through sometimes, or save my own money, or give too much away that I shouldn't be, just because.
But the interesting thing with that is, like, I think of in my life, the times when I've been the most generous, I also was the most happy, and I also had the most successful years I've ever had.
Yeah.
So, and I don't mean just giving things away or donating monetarily. It could be time, it could be resources, it could be helping a friend out, and giving them a book that like really helped me. But like the more energy I was putting into helping, because the more I got out of it and the more fulfilled I was myself. So I just encourage you not to always, it's easy to get caught up in feeling, like, man, I should have been this generous, or why was I? But
yeah, I don't
look back and feel bad about it.
Give away things. I give away stuff in order to compensate that belief. You know what I mean? And it doesn't come from that spirit of giving. It comes from an obligation to, you know what I mean? And I think and don't get me wrong, I love giving. I'm a giver, not a taker. But I think at the end of the day, like, it's the intention behind that.
Sure. Yeah, very much so.
And I'm just being honest and saying sometimes that intention is self-serving, and, I mean, maybe I get over it, but, there's a lot of negative beliefs, like a penny saved is a penny earned.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of belief systems out there, like, it's not will my family love me still if I'm really successful, right? Or who am I really like this friend, they're not that successful, but I still hold on to them, and yet they hold me back from becoming more successful. Just things like the choices that you make in your life based on your belief systems really have an effect on your success. And that's kind of what I was.
Yeah, and I really think, like, I had learned this a while back. I had actually had a career coach that gave me the advice, and he said, hold yourself to extremely high standards of what you want to achieve, and race with everybody else.
Yeah.
And coming to terms with that friend that might be holding you back in theory, and realizing, like, hey, look, they're just at a different season in their life and a different time frame in their life. And I'm maybe in a different one, but I'm okay with it.
Yeah.
And that was really, really, really hard for me to come to terms with, that everybody might not think about things the same way I do.
Yeah.
Or they might not want to, whether it's work those many hours, they might not want to provide a living for their family the same way, or they might not want to retire in South Florida. Like, it was hard for me to come to terms with people didn't think the same way as I did, and that they couldn't see it the way that I did. And I really had to look at it and say, hey, look, this is how I look at life. And it doesn't matter to me if other people look at it different, but I still got to respect it and look at it and say, maybe 5 years from now, they'll come to me and say, hey, you know what? You were onto something when you talked to me about it 5 years ago.
Right.
And it's really just kind of like taking that step back and using an ounce of grace and saying, hey, look, like, good for them. Eventually they'll get there, or maybe they won't. Maybe it doesn't matter to them.
Yeah, well, let me just back this up because I like where we're going with this. But with those particular people in your life that haven't discovered their purpose, or they're just at a different season per se, but it's kind of a drain on your positive attitude. How do you cope with, do you just separate yourself? Because when we talk about being surrounded by positive people and how important that is to your attitude and avoiding burnout, how do you sort of separate yourself from those friends that you do care about and love, to just sort of, and protect your persona, your attitude, your thoughts, your mindset? How do you
It's really important to tell them. Sometimes people don't even realize the spiral they're in. I always call it like people are going up in their thinking or down in their thinking, and sometimes people don't recognize it and they can't figure out how to stop it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you have a friend that or even, it could be us. Like, there's a time where like everything's going great in life and you don't even feel like you're contributing to it, but things are just going great and everything's clicking and everybody's happy at home and everybody's happy at work. And then there's times where everybody's frustrated at home and everybody's frustrated at work, and the mailman hits the mailbox and damages that, or whatever it is, like nothing can go right. And I think sometimes we bring that on ourselves. Well, so other people go through the same thing. They just might not have the self-awareness that can recognize it. Mm-hmm. So I know sometimes where in my life where I feel like my lunch was made wrong, my transport was late, like whatever it is. I know, that's why I threw that in there. But nothing can go right. So really, it's the circumstances of life, and sometimes we can choose to let it hold us back and drag us down, or we can find a way to spin it and flip it and find a way out of it. And I truly believe that most people can't recognize that situation when they're going up and when they're going down quick enough. And that's one of the biggest things that hurts them in anything, right? It's kind of like somebody wants some success in their career and then keep doing the same things over and over and over again, thinking it's going to continue.
Right. Right.
But the second that something goes wrong, they can't reinvent themselves.
That's very interesting how the solution is to really reinvent yourself, because at the end of the day, like, we all get stuck in a life kind of script, right? Where you may even find yourself, how did I get here again? Right. And so, I think that is so important, is just to kind of like do a little self-reflection. Okay, what do I need to change? What do I need to do differently? What do I need to learn? What skill do I need to have to kind of level up to the next area? You know what I mean? Angel says that you're the beast in the industry, Kiefer, and I just have to agree.
That's nice, nonetheless. I think that might be maybe a little bit more than is true. I know a lot of great people in the industry, and really, like, for me, like, I really want to point out the part where we're talking about different people, because I think a lot of times people are quick to point fingers at how somebody else isn't doing something right, but they're not willing to take the time and spend it on self-reflection. And that's one of the biggest keys I've ever noticed in life, is like, I wanted to dissect myself and figure myself out before I could try to tell somebody else how to live their life. And I'm not even saying I'm there. I just know that I've been on the journey for about the last year, and I've spent tons and tons and tons of time dissecting how I make decisions, how I look at things, why I view things a certain way, why somebody else might view it differently. And as you dissect that stuff, you start realizing, like, other people just aren't there yet in their version of thinking of it, or they just don't care. But I couldn't think somebody else did something wrong until I figured out how I made decisions myself.
Yeah. I think that's important. I think knowing yourself is ultimately, like, every single day, like, you have to take like 100% responsibility for your reality. Like, that is it. It all, at the end of the day, it comes on your shoulders. Like, whatever's happening in your world, whether you caused it or you didn't cause it, somehow that's your reality and you're responsible for it. So I always try to do a self-reflection. But at the end of the day, like, when you're looking at that, you're like, okay, got to change this, kind of change that, probably need to work on this. And none of that happens overnight. So I think that's the journey through life. It's our lifelong process.
But it's important to be careful on that, and a lot of people don't recognize that. But like, I think it's really important to. It's really everybody says like take accountability for everything, right? And I get that. I'm a big believer in that. But if my lunch is made wrong, I just have to chalk it up as that's life. Because if I'm like, well, if I would have went to a different restaurant and they would have made it this way, and then I could have got the same thing every single time. And sometimes when you get into that mode of taking complete ownership for everything that goes on and the situation and the circumstances, it's an interesting spiral where like there's some things that are still out of your control, and it's not worth it to put your mind and yourself through that when you could be dedicating those time and hours to something that's going to produce you more happiness, wealth, whatever, versus because when you get into that mode, it's easy to think every single thing is your fault and everyone around you, because they made a mistake, it's your mistake too. And it's important to, I'm not trying to take any credit away from, it's important to take ownership for things. But it can be very like dangerous in thinking where you're just negative, not you, but like a person becomes very negative about everything because everything's a problem.
Well, obviously we didn't cause coronavirus, right?
Right.
Situation that has happened to us that we are powerless over, that we did not cause, but it's how do we react to that, I think, is
very much so
where we need to take some responsibility. So with that being said, we are out of time for our show today, but I would like to ask you one last question to take us home, and that is, what is your favorite quote of the day? Give us a good quote. It could be your own quote. It could be anybody's quote, but
like I said, there's a combination from my coach, and hold yourself to high standards, and have a fair amount of grace for everybody else, and everybody else that's on a different journey. So there's no one magic quote, but I really think that if there's something somebody can look at is just, hold yourself to high standards, hit your goals, reach really high and get them. And if other people are on a different level or they think differently about it, be okay with it. And most of the time, they're going to admire you for it, and they're going to be the ones asking you for advice because they want to get on that same page when they come to terms with it. So I really appreciate being on the show again. It's always fun. And it always seems like towards the end of the episode, it gets a little bit better because this is actually the first show I've been on probably since coronavirus started. So because my focus has been all on work and my family and all those things, just kind of like you're talking about the show. Even my podcast, Sales As I Know It, I've hardly spent any time on with it for the same exact reasons. So I really appreciate getting to be on the show, and it's always fun and getting to see the comments, and I look forward to everybody that watches it after the
fact. Now listen, I would love for you to get in touch with Lou Ramirez, because his favorite quote is "Forgive, focus, fly," and it's amazing. Definitely perfect. But I'm going to end the show with, to be successful in business, you have to have your heart in business and business in your heart. And that's all for our show today. How can people get in touch with you if they want to be a part of Sales As I Know It? What's the best way if they ever want to buy a car from you, Kiefer? How do we?
Most people reach out. I mean, Facebook is kind of like turned into its own CRM, truthfully. Like, most people reach out to me on Facebook and on LinkedIn. On Instagram, it's kind of for fun. You'll see pictures of the puppy and my family. But yeah, Facebook works great, and really on LinkedIn as well. You get bits of the show. You'll find clips of it. You can watch the episode with you on the show or listen to it. But yeah, that's the best way.
Awesome. Well, listen, guys, please like, subscribe, share. And if you are interested in becoming a car biz leader, please private message me, and I will definitely have you back again. And Kiefer, amazing show today. Thank you so much for being on. Lots of gems. I'd have you back a million times. We always have great conversations. And Lou says, great interview. So thanks, Lou. And we always appreciate you watching. And with that, I'll end our show today. So thanks so much again. Appreciate you.
Hey, guys.
Bye.